let's talk about regulation, because you guys sit in an interesting space. Whereas, and that's what I think what makes you guys really interesting, because Coinbase, like you said, publicly traded company, it's kind of the chosen one of centralized exchanges in America. It's got a lot of customers, and they're dealing right on the front lines with regulation. Yep. They came out with this potential lend product they were going to do to offer, I think, 4% returns on some stable coins, but they never actually got out of the gate because the SEC kind of signaled that they were not going to be allowed to. The CEO, Brian Armstrong, who's a Silicon Valley-based guy, I think, Y Combinator startup and all that, just went to DC, met with a bunch of entities, but he said, I reached out to the SEC, tried to get a meet with them. They told me they weren't meeting any crypto companies. And so he, I think, is trying to figure out what to do. You guys don't seem to be under, that control of the US. So you guys are going ahead and offering these services out here, and you have your own customer test case. And yet Brian is really having to deal with the realities of the US because he can't break those rules necessarily. So we're kind of find out where the regulations are.
Yep.
What do you see when you watch that? And I know you run your own legal here for Nexo here, and you have background in law. So you can really tell us a lot of what's going on here.
I will try and do that.
Okay.
Right. Well, first of all, the first line were the US companies, right? That's why Coinbase and BlockFi and Celsius, the US companies, they got the first rounds of questions. It was directed to them because they are in the US. So no surprises there. Nexo does, the US being one of the markets, further down the list, and I'm sure that everybody who is offering these products will eventually get the same questionnaires and will go through the same procedures. Now, what are the challenges? The challenge is that we had a administration in Jay Clayton before Gary Gensler, who was very quiet about crypto. He didn't pay much attention. Yes, there were some enforcement actions against ICOs, but against, quite frankly, the obvious scams. And now we have this new administration and a guy who has been teaching about blockchain and crypto in his university, MIT, I think it was. And he's like a career legislator. So it's a very different administration that we are dealing with. And when they try and pass the infrastructure bill, there was the crypto lobby, and you can have constituents. This guy does not really care about re-election. He has got the mandate. He's appointed. He's here to stay. So anyone who underestimates him and his resolve to deal with these things in the way that he's dealing is going to be disappointed, to say the least. So
it's a good observation, because it is a personal story.
It's always a personal story.
Right. You have to look at it. And you're right, you look at his career. I was looking through his Wikipedia page. He has been at the forefront of a lot of, government institutions. Right. Ex-Goldman, ex-MIT, he used to teach this stuff. And yet he comes out with some pretty strong statements, calling the crypto industry the Wild West. He had a quote by saying, we got a lot of casinos out here in the Wild West, and the poker chip is stable coins. Yeah. So it feels like he's signaling that maybe he's signaling that, guess what, you are going to have to do something, and we want to let you know.
Right.
But you worked in politics for a while. It works in different ways, right?
Yeah, it does. When some of the states that have raised concerns and issued cease and desist letters to comparable services, we stopped onboarding new clients instantly. We want to comply. We want to play by the rules, but the rules haven't been very clear. We have the securities laws that were coined somewhere in the 1930s, the vast majority of them, and they just don't live up to the realities of the new world, And then the administration says, okay, this might be bad rules or rigid or not all-encompassing as they should be, but these are the rules, So it's a very complicated situation, but. Yeah, you're going.
No, I agree it's complicated. I'm just surprised that some of these people seem to be coming out with statements like poker chips and Wild West. And the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, Michael Hsu, said, I quote, "I've seen one fool's gold rush from up close in the lead up to the 2008 financial crisis." And he's like, I feel like we're on the cusp of another, fool's gold play with crypto and DeFi. And I was just like, it's very surprising to hear guys.
It's a very different thing. The the great financial recession, it was caused by the most regulated entities in the world and the institutions that have the most oversight ever, right? Yeah. And people are very quick to forget, and this is, I think, one of the problems with Wall Street in particular, because every 5 years you have a new generation of traders and bankers, and they don't remember even the great financial recession. This was back in the old days where you had bear markets, and what's a bear market anymore? Nobody knows. Yeah. I have been shorting the S&P since 2010, and I can tell you how that worked out. Not amazingly great. But what I wanted to say is that back in the 80s, you could have your treasury bond yielding you 30% per year, right? And they have been cutting rates, and a great financial crisis even more so. As a student in London, I had a deposit at HSBC. A fixed term deposit was yielding 6% a year. I can find the documents and show this is not some fantasy by someone who's getting older, but this was a reality. And now with this expansive monetary policy, we're to the point where everybody's got to be in the stock market. And what's that doing for consumer protection? And why is our product, which is yielding 6%, and I can very clearly show you how the money is being generated, how is that dangerous? And why have we all of a sudden been duped the Wild West because we are offering high yield products which are dangerous? So good luck in making that argument in Washington, though.